Hello, welcome to the course PH5 BO6 Electrodynamics 2. Contents of today's lecture is taken from Fundamentals of Magnetism and Electricity by D.N. Vasudeva. We will continue to discuss topics from Chapter 22, Alternating Current Circuits. In today's class, we are going to learn how to use J operators in analyzing AC circuits. Now, what's a J operator? J operator is nothing but the all familiar imaginary number I, which is defined as square root of -1. So from this definition we can write J square equal to -1 or 1 by J. 1 is nothing but minus J square, so minus J square by J, which is minus J. Now this J operator can be used to represent a rotation of vectors through certain angles. Now how do we do that? So take a one-dimensional axis. We have positive numbers on the right side and negative numbers on the left side. Imagine you have a vector OA which ranges from 0 to 2 along the positive axis. Now you want to convert this vector into another vector OA prime, which is along the opposite direction. So OA prime ranges from 0 to -2. Now how do we do that? If you want to convert any vector into its negative counterpart, you basically multiply it with -1, right? So vector OA into -1 gives you minus OA, which is nothing but your OA prime. Now in terms of J operator, let's try to understand this operation. -1 corresponds to J square, right? So if you multiply any vector with J square, you get the corresponding negative vector. Now in terms of rotation, what happens here? When you convert OA into OA prime, you are basically rotating OA through an angle 180 degree in the anti-clockwise direction, right? So multiplication with J square corresponds to an anti-clockwise rotation through 180 degree. So if J square corresponds to 180, then J corresponds to half of this, which is 90 degrees. So I can say multiplication by J corresponds to an anti-clockwise rotation through an angle 90 degree. We already know that an anti-clockwise angle corresponds to an angle of lead, right? So multiplication by J also corresponds to a lead angle of 90 degree. So from this definition, now I can easily extrapolate and say multiplication by -J would correspond to clockwise rotation through 90 degree. And clockwise rotation also corresponds to an angle of lag. From this equation, we know that multiplication with -J is same as division by +J, right? So this same statement I can rewrite and say division by +J corresponds to clockwise rotation through 90 degree. Right. So let's illustrate this with some examples here. Suppose you have an OA vector along the x direction. You want to convert into an OA prime along the +y direction. So here you can see that OA is rotated through an angle 90 degree in the anti-clockwise or counterclockwise direction. And this rotation is given by multiplication with +J. So when you multiply OA with +J, you get OA prime here. Similarly, if you want to convert OA into OA prime along the -y direction. So here rotation is done through an angle 90 degree in the clockwise direction, which is given by multiplication with -J. So when you multiply OA with -J, you get OA prime in this. Since we are talking about a J operator, which is nothing but the imaginary number, essentially we are dealing with complex numbers here. Right? And complex numbers are usually represented using the Argand diagram, where there are two components for complex numbers. One is the real component and one is the imaginary component. In the Argand diagram, the real component is represented as the reference component and the imaginary part is represented as the quadrature component. So this is essentially a two-dimensional graph where the x-axis corresponds to the reference component or the real part. So on the right-hand side you have positive numbers, left-hand side you have the negative numbers. And the y-axis corresponds to the imaginary part or the quadrature component. So plus y corresponds to the positive imaginary numbers and the minus y corresponds to negative imaginary number. So any complex number, you have two components, the real component and the imaginary component. Now how do you plot a vector? Just like you plot any vector in an xy plane. So what do you do? If you want to plot a complex number 2 plus 2j. So here the real part is 2, imaginary part is 2j, right? So first along the positive x direction you take 2 units. Similarly in the positive imaginary axis you take 2 units here. So this is j, this is 2j. So this point the coordinates are 2 and 2j and the vector drawn from the origin to this point represents the complex number. Now why do we need this kind of a complex representation? We'll come to that shortly. The advantage of using a complex number in the case of AC circuit is that you can have a more comprehensive way of looking at the impedance here. Now, impedance, as we know, has two components. One is the resistance component, which is offered by the ohmic resistance, and one is the reactance, which is offered by the inductor, capacitor, etc. So what we are going to do is we are going to represent the impedance as a complex number and we call it as complex vector impedance. So I'm sure you are familiar with this notation here. So this bar indicates that impedance Z is a complex vector number. And the complex number has two components. One is the real part, which is given by the ohmic resistance. The ohmic resistance is also known as the in-phase component because across an ohmic resistance, current and voltage both are in phase. And the imaginary part of the complex vector impedance is given by the reactance, which is also known as the out-of-phase component. So in general, I can write complex Z equal to R plus Jx, where R is the resistive in-phase component and X is the reactive out-of-phase component. And the magnitude of the complex vector impedance, this is nothing but the magnitude of this vector, which is square root of R square plus X square. So even though we represent impedance as a complex number, whenever you make a practical measurement, what you are going to measure is the magnitude of this complex vector impedance, which is square root of R square plus X square. So the advantage of this kind of a representation is that instead of mentioning resistance and reactance separately, now you can represent both of them in one single representation. So this gives you a more comprehensive way of analyzing an AC circuit. Now let's try to re-represent the phase relation between voltage and current in various circuits we have learned so far using J operators. So starting with the simplest case, which is the R circuit, where the circuit consists of a single ohmic resistance R. So here we already know that the voltage and current are in phase. Now how do you represent the phase relation? Look at the impedance. Once again, I have real part, which is the resistance, imaginary part, which is the reactance. In the case of R circuit, the reactance part is absent, only the resistance is there. And from the Argand diagram, we know that the the real part is plotted along the x-axis, right? So both voltage and current here are plotted along the x direction. Coming to the L circuit, where we know that the voltage leads current by 90 degree. Now in the case of L circuit, if you go back to the fundamental definition of impedance, I have only an inductive reactance here. The ohmic resistance is absent. So basically I am looking at a number which is along the imaginary direction, right? So here I can write the complex voltage E equal to JE, only the imaginary component is here. And voltage E is nothing but current I multiplied by the inductive reactance L omega. Now, what is the vector reactance involved here? Vector reactance is nothing but the vector voltage divided by the current. Vector voltage is J-I-L omega divided by I, which is nothing but J into L omega. Now, how do you represent the phase relation? So I have current along the x direction and voltage leads current by 90 degree, right? And angle of lead is represented by a multiplication by plus J. So you multiply the voltage E with plus J. Now this indicates that voltage leads current by 90 degree. Coming to the C circuit, sorry for the typo here, this is the capacitor circuit. Here we know that the voltage lags current by 90 degree. So we know that an angle of lag is nothing but an angle in the clockwise direction, and this is represented by multiplication with minus J or division with plus J. So let's take multiplication with minus J. So current I along the x direction and the voltage E is along the minus y direction because it's multiplied with minus J. So this represents that the voltage lags current by 90 degree. Now, what about the vector reactance? We know that the total voltage, once again, since the ohmic resistance is absent, we have only the imaginary component here. So I can write the complex voltage is minus JE and voltage is nothing but current I into vector reactance, which is 1 by C omega. So this is minus J into I by C omega. Or the vector reactance or the complex vector reactance is nothing but complex voltage E divided by I, which is minus J by C omega. Minus J is also 1 by J, so I can write XC as 1 by J C omega. Coming to the LR circuit, and we have two components here. One is the in-phase component across the resistance, which is ER, and one is the out-of-phase component across the inductor, which is EL. Now compared to the in-phase component ER, EL leads by an angle 90 degrees, so which is represented by multiplication with plus J. So along the x-axis I have ER, along the plus y-axis I have JEL. Now what is the total voltage? This is nothing but a vector sum of ER and JEL. So I can write complex voltage E equal to ER plus JEL, or in terms of the current I can write this is IR plus J into IL omega. And the complex vector impedance is nothing but the complex voltage divided by current, which is R plus JL omega. Now what is the magnitude of this complex vector? This is nothing but square root of R square plus L square omega square. So in an LR circuit, when you make a measurement, this is the value you are going to get. Coming to CR circuit, where we know that the voltage lags current by an amount phi. Okay. So once again you have two components. One is the in-phase component ER, and the component along the capacitor EC, this lags the ER component by an angle 90 degrees. So this is represented by multiplication with minus J. And the net voltage is the vector sum of these two components. So I can write complex E equal to ER minus JEC, which is nothing but IR minus J into I by C omega. What about the complex vector impedance? This is the complex voltage divided by current, which is R minus J by C omega. What about the magnitude of this? This is going to be square root of the R square, which is the real part, plus the imaginary part, which is 1 divided by C square omega square. Moving on to the LCR circuit. The phase relation between the voltage and current depends on the value of the reactance, right? We have three conditions. When the inductive reactance L omega greater than the capacitive reactance C omega, then voltage leads current by phi. If L omega is less than 1 by C omega, then voltage lags the current by phi. If both the reactants are same, then voltage and current are in phase. So we have three conditions. Let's try to represent the first case where the voltage leads current by an amount phi. Okay. We have three voltage components here. One is the in-phase component across the resistance ER. Then we have one component across the inductance, which leads the in-phase component by an angle 90 degree. This is represented by multiplication with plus J. Then you have a component across the capacitor, which lags the in-phase component by an angle 90 degree. So this is represented by multiplication with minus J. So you have JEL along the plus Y direction, minus JEC along the minus Y direction. So first let's take the vector sum of these two. Since EL is greater than EC, the resultant of these two is going to be a smaller vector in the upward direction. So the resultant is J into EL minus EC. Now we have two components, one is ER, one is J into EL minus EC. So the net voltage is the vector summation of ER and J into EL minus EC. So we can write the complex voltage equal to ER plus J into EL minus EC, which is IR into J into IL omega minus I divided by C omega. What about the vector impedance here? So basically divide the complex voltage with current, you get the vector impedance as R plus J into L omega minus 1 by C omega. And the magnitude of the complex impedance is square root of R square plus L omega minus 1 by C omega whole square. So the phase relation between the voltage and current in various AC circuits can be represented using J operator in a very comprehensive manner here. Next, let's try to understand the repulsion between a coil carrying AC and a neighboring inductor. So this is nothing but the jumping ring experiment we have learned in the first module of electrodynamics. Hope you remember this experiment. So we have a solenoid, and inside that solenoid there is a conducting core, which is basically used to concentrate the magnetic field of the solenoid. And on top of the solenoid you have a ring placed. So let's call the solenoid as A and ring as B. So usually when you place B on top of A, nothing happens, but when you pass an AC current through the solenoid, what happens? You will find that the ring is jumping on the air. So this is known as jumping ring experiment. In the first module, we have done a qualitative analysis of this experiment using the principle of electromagnetic induction. So we know what happens here. When current passes through the solenoid, a magnetic field is generated. Since this is an alternating current, the strength of the magnetic field also changes. From Faraday's law, we know that changing magnetic field induces an electric field. So electric field is induced in the ring B because of mutual induction, and this EMF drives current in ring B. Now, what is the direction of the current? From Lenz's law, we know that current flows in a direction which opposes the original change in the flux. So if you imagine that the flux in solenoid A is produced by a current flowing in this direction towards the right, then the induced current will flow in the opposite direction towards the left. Since two opposing currents repel each other, we find that the ring is jumping in the air because of the repulsion between ring B and solenoid A. Now let's try to understand what's happening here more mathematically using the phase relation between voltage and current we have learned so far. Let's try to give a mathematical description to this jumping ring experiment. So let's imagine that I equal to I naught sine omega t be the AC current flowing through the coil A, and let capital L be the inductance of coil A. Coming to ring B, let R be the ohmic resistance of ring B, and let capital M be the mutual inductance between solenoid A and ring B. Now, what is a voltage in ring B? The voltage is produced because of the mutual induction between A and B, right? So we can write the voltage as minus M into di by dt. Since I equal to I naught sine omega t, di by dt equal to I naught omega cos omega t. So voltage is nothing but minus M omega I naught cos omega t. Minus cos omega t can be written as sine omega t minus pi by 2. Now, what is the current in ring B? Current in the ring is determined by two factors here. One is the ohmic resistance of ring B. Secondly, since the current is set up by the induced EMF, which is generated because of the mutual induction between A and B, the current is also influenced by the inductive reactance of solenoid A. So essentially we are talking about an LR circuit here. The resistance of ring B and inductance of solenoid A. This is an LR circuit. So in the case of an LR circuit, we know that current is nothing but voltage divided by the total reactance, which is square root of R square plus L square omega square. We also know that in the case of an LR circuit, voltage leads the current by an amount phi, or current lags the voltage by an amount phi. So that's why we add this extra phase term here, just to maintain the phase relation between voltage and current in an LR circuit. So I can write current in ring B is nothing but M omega I naught divided by reactance square root of R square plus L square omega square sine omega t minus pi by 2 minus phi, where phi is tan inverse L omega by R. What is the force between A and B? There is current flowing through A, current flowing through B. So the net force is proportional to product of currents in both these coils. So I can write the force between A and B is proportional to current through A, which is I naught sine omega t, multiplied by current through B, which is M omega I naught divided by square root of R square plus L square omega square sine omega t minus pi by 2 minus phi. Let's take all constant terms outside. So I have M omega I naught square divided by R square plus L square omega square sine omega t. Let's expand this sine term. So I can write this as omega t minus pi by 2 plus phi. Now sine A minus B is sine A cos B minus cos A sine B. So this term can be expanded as sine omega t cos pi by 2 plus phi minus cos omega t sine pi by 2 plus phi. Now take the sine term inside. So this becomes sine square omega t into cos pi by 2 plus phi minus sine omega t cos omega t sine pi by 2 plus phi. Sine 2 omega t is 2 sine omega t cos omega t. So I can write sine omega t cos omega t as half into sine 2 omega t. So the net force is proportional to m omega I naught square square root of r square plus L square omega square multiplied by sine square omega t into cos pi by 2 plus phi minus half into sine 2 omega t multiplied by sine pi by 2 plus phi. Since we are talking about alternating currents here, whenever you make a measurement, it's difficult to measure the instantaneous values of the current because it changes so rapidly. So what do? Take one complete cycle, that is from 0 to 2 pi, then calculate the average value of the force or current here. Okay. So let's find out what is the average value of the force in one complete cycle. So how do we calculate the average value? Basically, you look at the time varying terms and calculate the average value of those terms. And other terms, since they are constant, their average value and instantaneous value both are same. So I don't have to bother about these constant terms here. Similarly, cos pi by 2 plus phi, for a given phi, this is a constant. I don't have to bother about this term. I don't have to bother about this sine term also. So basically I need to find out the average value of sine square omega t and sine 2 omega t. We already know that the average value of sine function is always 0. Similarly, the average value of sine square function is half. So since this value gives rise to 0 here, this entire term gets cancelled. So basically I need to look at only the first term, where the first sine square omega t term gives me a factor of half here. So the average value of the force is going to be half into m omega I naught square divided by r square plus L square omega square multiplied by cos pi by 2 plus phi. We know that the value of phi ranges between 0 and pi by 2. So when you add phi to pi by 2, basically you are going to arrive at the second quadrant, right? In the second quadrant, the cos function always yields a negative value. So basically you are going to get a negative force here. By convention, negative force represents a repulsive force. On the other hand, a positive force represents an attractive force. So since the force is repulsive, because of the repulsion between these two rings, the ring B is going to jump in the air. So that's the mathematical description of the jumping ring experiment, which is an outcome of the phase relation between voltage and current in an LR circuit. So that's for today. In the next class, we will try to understand the relation between voltage and current in AC bridge circuits. Thank you.